Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
You're listening to a special edition Zweig Letter podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting guru Mark Zweig and his team of experts straight talk in your ear. Mark has more than 30 years of experience helping AEP and environmental firms thrive, and these podcasts deliver his invaluable management, industry, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter and the Zweig Letter podcasts let you develop professionally wherever you are.
Hey folks, it's Randy Wilburn here with the Zweig Letter podcast, back for another episode. I am so glad that I finally convinced Richard Massey, the editor of the Zweig Letter, to come on our podcast. This podcast was actually created for the benefit of him and for the Zweig Letter itself, but I'm just certainly honored to have you finally on the show. Everybody wants to hear from you. There's so much to be said, so much to talk about, and we've got a kind of a jam-packed show today. It's more of a free-for-all that we're going to have today with Mr. Massey, so you can hear his heart about writing and about the Zweig Letter in general and the design industry, and how he's trying to take this little corner of the world and make his own impact with his writing. So, Richard, without further ado, I just want to welcome you to the Zweig Letter podcast. It's been too long, but you're finally here.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Randy. It's good to be here, and I appreciate you getting this opportunity together for us. I'd love to talk to our listeners out there and tell them about what I do and how we get it done.
Okay, well, that's good. So, I know, Richard, you and I, we go back and forth a lot, especially when it's deadline time and my article is due. I write a couple of articles a month, or maybe one a month. I don't know. I lose track. But, you write an article every week. And you came out. Just tell the audience a little bit about who Richard Massey is. I learned more about you last week when we had our lunch and learn.
Oh yeah, the lunch and learn.
Yeah, which was a lot of fun. But tell the audience just a little teaser about your background and
sure.
Let them know who you are.
Yeah, well, my background is in journalism. I have a degree in journalism, and for about 15 years, I worked for daily newspapers, a business journal, and really, I've always been small to mid-market. I've never been in a big market, but a lot of the dirty work in journalism is done at the local level, actually, and that's where most journalism people put food on their plates. Okay. And so, without going into too much detail, I've pretty much covered everything but a foreign war. I've been from local courts all the way up to state Supreme Court, state legislature. I've done a couple of federal things, and a ton of stuff, city council, local courthouse, school districts, the cops, and, and did business reporting for 2.5 years, and now, architecture and engineering. So outside of a foreign war, I've pretty much done it all.
Yeah, and you're an author.
And yes, in the last couple of years, I've become a published author. I'm with a small publishing house, but published nonetheless, and that feels pretty good.
Awesome, that's awesome. Well, certainly, I know we're glad to have you. I think you just celebrated your 1-year anniversary just a couple of months ago, back in
yes,
January.
I sure did.
Yeah, so that's exciting. I can't believe a year or more has gone by. So that's really exciting. So tell me a little bit about your mindset behind the Zweig Letter and what you're trying to get across. I mean, we know that Mark Zweig writes the masthead piece, if you will,
right,
each week. And, Mark is such a fabulous writer. I just love reading his articles. And I have to say, if we didn't have somebody like him coming out of the gates, it would be a lot harder to get this newsletter across to people because, everybody, we're fighting for attention on a daily basis. And it's really difficult for people. But so tell me your thought process behind what you're trying to accomplish with the Zweig Letter.
Sure. What we want to do is just have this kind of like a weekly conference call with our readership because we come out once a week. We'll have anywhere from 5 to 6 articles a week, which if you do the math is anywhere from 20 to 24, about 20 a month, and so. In that time frame, if you look at it on a month-long time frame, we can address a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't expect our readers to read every word of every article. What I really expect them to do is to find neat little golden nuggets within the publication that come out over and over and over again to either reconfirm something that they already know.
Yeah.
That reinforcement that we all need, that you're doing the right thing or that you're going in the right direction, or to even spark in someone a brand new idea that they've never had before. So that's the ultimate goal of the Zweig Letter, is just to be like that extra C-suite executive on staff that helps people make good decisions and to, keep on top of what people are thinking and doing in that industry. And I know that we succeed in that.
Yeah. And, I know I'm always looking forward to reading like some of the spotlight articles and there have been a couple of features. You did a couple of months ago, you did a story about that building in San Francisco.
The Leaning Tower of Millennium. Yeah, that's crazy.
And then there was also a really good one recently about I don't know if she was a controller or just an accountant.
Oh, yeah, the lady that embezzled over $5 million from her firm. It's amazing. Yeah. There's always these little tidbits out there, You want to think that everything goes as planned in architecture and engineering. Yeah. And that's what the public sees. They'll see a nice, pretty building or a nice, big road. But, the normal people out there don't understand all the drama that goes on behind the scenes. And every once in a while, it'll pop out and it'll become public, like, a 60-story office tower in San Francisco that's leaning, or a woman that steals $5 million from her firm and fesses up once they catch her. She didn't try and deny it. But, we have insurance brokers that write for us, and we have team coaches that write for us, and they mention it all the time. Like, a big issue in AE industry is handling conflict, is handling crisis, is handling these issues that go sideways. And you hear a lot about RPMs and, principals in charge, mm-hmm. and how much trouble they can get into when they don't see eye to eye with the owner of the project.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we always get at in our in this Zweig Letter is, what do you do? What do you do when you have a rotten apple? Even you wrote an article the other day that hasn't been published yet, but, you take your time hiring, and when it comes time to firing, if you know that there's a problem, you get rid of it as fast as you can.
Exactly.
And I think there's a lot of people out there, when they're reading this Zweig Letter, maybe they're a young CEO and they don't really get that yet, and they know that, that something is, something's rotten in Denmark.
Yeah.
And they might need someone like you or Mark or Chad or Paul Greenhagen to say, you need to get rid of that problem as quick as possible.
Exactly.
Because that's the only way you can get it done. And hopefully that young CEO out there who's reading this Zweig Letter says, Susie Q is not doing what we need her to do. And she's infecting the other employees. But, just good bare bones advice and tips and best practices is what this Zweig Letter is really all about. We don't strive to be fancy. but we do strive to be consistent and solid and meaningful.
Okay. So what do you have, what's in store for the future of the Zweig Letter with everything changing in the industry? And I mean, we all get our information differently. If I want information, I can go to Google and look it up, or, go here or there. How have you continued to remain relevant in an ever-changing digital age of information?
Sure. Well, we were recently added to Apple News, which is good. Every time we come out on Monday morning, our articles hit Apple News. So add us to your news feed there, and you can get us on your mobile device.
Right.
So we're going to be where you are. Another thing is, nothing's easy in this industry, and nothing's really easy in the world. So, continue to establish our social media presence, and continue to build the readership. And I think one of the ways that you build the readership is you dig deeper into the org chart, which means you start to engage younger readers.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I look to do is to get younger people that are in the industry to start writing for us, and it's occurring, but it's also a slow process because and all good and well, it's a lot of people say they want to write an article, but when it comes time to writing it
right.
and getting it turned in,
wait, did I actually have to do that?
Yeah, do I actually have to crank out a 600-word article by tomorrow? Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to be asking you to write for us that much more.
Right.
So it's easier said than done to get people to write for you, because a lot of times it's just not in people's normal daily or weekly routine. And once they really start to write, they find out that it's not easy, especially if you want to make a point that people are going to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that, and I would just bring it up. And what are your thoughts, and maybe throw out a little tidbit of advice, especially since you are what I would term and I'm using air quotes here, a professional writer.
Right.
A lot of engineers and architects sometimes feel that they can't write their way out of a paper bag, even though these are highly intelligent individuals. What one or two pieces of advice would you give that young engineer or architect in terms of fine-tuning the craft of writing, even within the scope of what they do on a regular basis?
Sure. One of the things that it's real simple, definitely write about what you know, because especially in a technical field and a fact-based field, this is not literary fiction. This is reality here. It's definitely write about something that you know, and keep it simple. Yeah. Keep it simple. Yeah. I think sometimes people want to be very extravagant, but what I've found in reading and writing throughout the course of my professional career and even in college is the simpler, the better, and that's where you can really make your strong points as opposed to trying to be creative. A lot of times that's when people fall flat because they get lost.
Right.
They get turned around, and they're in a big giant subdivision. They don't know where the exit is, and they've kind of turned themselves around. So, very linear, and go from point A to point B and try and get there as quickly as you can.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, there you go, folks. You hear it from the master himself on how to take your writing up a notch or two. And certainly I know I personally have just, I just learned by practicing and just writing over and just doing it.
I mean, and it's also muscle memory too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that you have to do, is you just have to crank it out, and you have to, just to put it in your schedule.
Yeah,
is a big part of it.
Absolutely. So tell me what it's like working directly with Mark Zweig. I mean, he is. I call him a business savant because he really is. He does know the ins and outs of running a successful business. He's taken two companies and put them on the Inc. 500, 5,000 list. Most recently with Mark Zweig Inc., which is his real estate rehabilitation and development company, and then of course with most recently for us at Zweig Group back in 2013. And so, and I was with us back originally when we did it 2 years in a row. And so it's no small feat.
Sure.
And Mark is really, I mean, he's a brilliant individual. I know he can be demanding, but
yes.
what's it like working with him directly, and also just, you know, kind of bending yourself to his style of writing and exchanging ideas and information?
Sure. Well, I think a big thing with Mark Zweig is, and I love Mark, by the way, too. I respect him quite a bit, and he signs my check, and he's given all of us a good standard of living here.
Absolutely.
So let me say that first. But two, Mark is definitely demanding. There's no doubt about it. And I think the big thing with Mark is you have to earn his trust.
Yeah.
And before you have his trust, it can be tricky.
Yeah.
After you've gained his trust, things get a lot better.
Right.
And so I think once Mark feels like that you're going in the right direction, and I needed some guidance because I'd never done architecture and engineering before I got here. I had to learn it. But once he trusts you and feels like that, you know, you're doing the right thing, he really just lets you go. Yeah. And he trusts you to do what you're supposed to do. And that's, I think, one of the magic moments that you get with that guy is that you get a chance to do your thing.
Yeah.
But it does take a bit. And before you get to that moment, it's not necessarily the easiest thing, but I can tell you that process of earning Mark's trust and earning Chad Kleinhand's trust, the new CEO, it was a challenging task, but very rewarding. And in the process of getting to that point, I grew professionally. I also grew personally from the experience. So, because if you know Mark Zweig, I mean, the results speak for themselves. I mean, he is super successful, and he writes a column once a week for the Zweig Letter, which, getting back to what I was saying earlier, that's not the easiest thing to do.
No.
And when you read his stuff, you know, he's always spot on. And when I have the occasion to speak to people who are subscribers to the Zweig Letter, they love his stuff because he'll just come out and blurt it out.
Keeps it real.
Yeah, he'll say what a lot of people might be thinking,
right,
and don't have the courage to say. Mark will just come out and say it.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that makes the Zweig Letter unique is his voice, because I don't really think that voice exists in too many other places anywhere, but particularly in the AE industry. Yeah. So that's why he's on the masthead, and that's why he leads off, is because there's only one Mark Zweig. He has institutional knowledge, and it's like we say, because we're Gen Xers, you know, we're from that era, and we knew the old school peoples, you know, once they're gone, they don't get replaced.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
They're one of a kind, and they come from the old world, from the old school, and Mark embodies that. Yeah. And so I think that's really neat, and that's one of the things that keeps me going, is that we kind of have something that no one else has.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, absolutely. And when you think about, you know, obviously this the newsletter rather has run since 1992.
Yes.
And so we're getting up there. So, and you know, we're still trying to remain relevant, which I think is that's relative. I mean, to any company or any organization, especially those that are creating printed material. I look back and I remember being interviewed in Business Week in 2009, and Business Week's no longer around.
Oh,
yeah. And just gives you perspective about how things change, even with the times and the way technology has changed, and information and the flow of information. So there's a lot to be said for that. And I know that you're trying to remain relevant in an ever-changing marketplace. And I know you guys have some plans in the future.
Yeah, we have some plans, you know, to broaden the readership base. But I also think that one of the things that keeps us relevant is that we're not, it goes back to the old Caddyshack movie with Bill Murray, you know, where he's always chasing the groundhog and trying to catch it. And, it gets him into so much trouble, and I think one of the things that makes the Zweig Letter strong, I think where we would develop is the actual delivery of it. But I think the content is strong, and I think that's what keeps us relevant, is that we're not chasing groundhogs, we're not chasing rabbits.
Yeah.
We know what works, which is, to have people that know what they're talking about to write for us, and to get it professionally edited and put together, and to kind of, it is a legacy publication to a certain extent. Yeah. And I think that that's one of the things that makes the Zweig Letter special, is that it has been around for a long time, and but we're not trying to turn it into, some kind of crazy, BuzzFeed type of website, where, with all the clickbait and everything. That's
Right.
not what the Zweig Letter does,
Yeah.
and that's not what it is.
Yeah.
I think our big challenge is to grow the readership and to modernize, or to continue to modernize some of the forms of the delivery. Mm-hmm. But I think our content, it's timeless and it's universal. And I think a lot of the things that are in this Zweig Letter could apply to running a firm in toxicology, or running a law firm,
Right.
or
Right.
running an accounting firm.
Right.
I think a lot of the things that we talk about could be translated to a greater realm of businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So could you tease any stories that you got that you're working on that might be coming out in the near future in a new edition of the Zweig Letter that we should be looking out for?
Yeah. Well, it's something. You're putting me on the spot right here, but one of our best firm CEOs is a guy by the name of David Ahrens, and he has a firm up in Cincinnati, and we're going to run a conference call with him, which is where the CEO talks about, it's a 15-question questionnaire, just about the nuts and bolts of running an AE firm, and of course he's very successful, and he's the top guy there. But David Ahrens, I read and edited his conference call the other day, and it's really good. I mean, he really opened up, and every once in a while people talking generalities.
Right.
Okay, that happens. But he really gets into some more detailed stuff, and I was editing it last Friday, actually, and I'm like, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
So David Ahrens' conference call is going to be coming up here pretty soon in the next few weeks, and it's
Awesome.
it's pretty tight. It's really good, and I don't think there's one typo in it.
Yeah.
And so he and his team really did a fantastic job. We just ran a column from Paul Greenhagen from Westwood Professional Services, and he was talking about sometimes because they've bought a lot of firms, they've acquired a lot of firms in the last few years, and that firm has really, really grown. And one of the things that he was talking about in the column was that, and it's out on Facebook right now and on our website, is, sometimes you acquire a firm, and the firm that you acquire might have some better ideas and better processes than yours.
Right.
And that you have to confront that and say, you know what, we might have acquired them, but they're doing things a little bit better than us, at least in certain departments.
Yeah.
And that you have to be open to that, and you can't just run roughshod over the firm that you've acquired. You have to see what they've got, and if they've got something that's better than what you have, you might have to implement it. And coming from a CEO of that stature, I think that they're around a 500-man firm now. That means a lot.
Yeah,
And so that was a really good column. But we've always got some good stuff brewing. It's just, people have to take the time and to read what these CEOs of these very successful firms are saying about how they do business.
Yeah.
And that's very powerful, because there's only one way you can get that knowledge is to have done it. This is not theoretical stuff.
Yeah. Huh. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, just hearing you talk about Paul, and I think humility is so key, especially in the the M&A space, and we see that a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to buy this company and they'll just become us and that'll be that. But the reality is that sometimes there are some good ideas out there.
And then you might acquire a firm with some super talented people, and you don't want to run them off. Because if you try and run roughshod over them, they will put their resume out there somewhere else, and there are executive search people out there who will scoop them.
We know a few.
We know a few who will scoop them up and say, hey, if you don't like it over there anymore, there's a new place for you to go.
We got a better place for you to hang your hat.
Yeah, so. and Paul talks about all that.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was very illuminating. But he's a major CEO, but he always comes in on deadline, and he always has good stuff.
Okay. Right.
So, and those are the kind of people that we like to have in there.
Okay. Good. Well, man, I really appreciate you doing this, and I know you got a busy schedule. I did have a couple more questions I want to ask you. We are doing something new here on the Zweig Letter. We want to go a little deeper for our audience, and since this is an interview, we want to learn who the real Richard Massey is.
Oh gosh!
Now, and before we do that, I do want to give you a little pub. You did write a book recently called Municipal Tilt, which I got a signed copy of. I really appreciate that. And I just started diving into it. But do you want to just give us a quick synopsis of what that's all about? Yeah,
sure. Municipal Tilt is a local election set in 1995, back before the internet and cell phones and all that stuff had really, taken over the discourse. Okay. And it's a local election. It's the good guys versus the bad, industry versus the environment. But that's really just a backdrop. And what the novel is really about, it's about redemption.
Okay.
It's about people finding their voice in a confusing world.
Yeah.
And they do find their voice. And one of the central themes is that if you want to find your voice in this world, at some point in time, you're going to have to fight back.
Absolutely.
And to hold on to what you have, or to get whatever it is that you want, because there's always going to be obstacles in front of you. Yeah. And that's with anything.
Okay. Well, no, that's awesome. I can't. I just literally cracked it open, looked at the foreword, and I'm going to start reading it over the next couple of weeks. I'm looking.
I'm excited. You're in for a treat. Just stick with it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I definitely will. Cool. So my other question was, and I'm not going to ask you what was the last book you. Well, actually, I will. You're an author. What was the last book you read?
Well, I'm a history guy.
That's right. Okay.
So I read a lot of history. And the last book that I can truly remember reading, I haven't read in the last few months, but gosh, I think I read about 6 or 7 books about a little corner in the southeast of France, in a little area called Gascony, which was preparation for a book that I just finished.
Right.
But I read, it was the Bordeaux wine trade, and a historian had gone in and found all the old tax records from the 14th century.
Wow.
And found out how much wine was actually coming through Bordeaux in the Middle Ages. And it was interesting because they found out, and the author, she died young. She contracted cancer and passed, and it was really just a publication of her notes.
Okay.
But they were groundbreaking because no one had ever done it. And it was an author by the name of Marjorie James. And what she had done is collected the tax records, and in 1305, which is 700 years ago, is over 700 years ago, the volume of the Bordeaux wine trade was about a third of what it is today.
Wow.
Which means it was huge. I think 105,000 tons went through the port at Bordeaux.
Wow.
And so I'm a history guy, and when you read that history, but it illuminates everything else that you did. But I had to read about 6 or 7 books and some scholarly articles to figure out what was going on in that part of the world, because it's kind of remote and it's kind of obscure, but it's also universal.
Yeah.
Because they started pulling out their grain crops and replanting them with grapes.
Yeah.
Because why? That's where the money was.
Yeah.
And obviously, people still drink Bordeaux wine today. You can buy it at Liquor World in Fayetteville. It's just a brand. It's a brand that has survived and thrived for
over 700 years.
800 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's cool. Where did you go on your last vacation?
My last real vacation where I took time off, I went down to the hill country in southwest Texas to visit my family. Right outside a little town called Camp Wood. We're on the West Fork of the Nueces River.
Okay. All right.
And you expect Pancho Villa and his gang of desperados to jump out from around every corner that you go out from. It's a beautiful place. I think I'm going back down there again this summer.
Okay.
But as you get older, you realize that your family is the most important thing in your life. So I go down there to visit my family. My mom's there, and some cousins and all that stuff. So that would really be the last place that I went. And I write so much these days, I really don't leave town that often because you have to stop everything when you leave town.
Yeah, how about that? So, all right, and then my last question for you is, if you could binge watch one TV series, old or new, what would it be?
Oh my, that's a great question, because I know binge watching is a big thing now, right?
It is.
I would be... it sounds odd, but it's one of the TV shows that I grew up with watching with my mom that I missed dearly was Remington Steele.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Bonanza, but you said
Remington Steele.
Right,
yeah,
cool.
You remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
With Pierce Brosnan and the lady, and they were solving these crimes, and they had like this back and forth romance relationship.
Right, exactly.
Those were fun. I loved those.
Yeah.
And whenever I see, Remington Steele just always brings me back to a happy time. But I know it's not Game of Thrones or anything like that. But I would go through and watch everything from Remington Steele and then move on to something else.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I know there's My TV or some Me TV or whatever that has all those old shows. So it's kind of cool to see those. So.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Richard, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us on actually your podcast, the Zweig Letter podcast. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, hey, thanks. And we hope that anyone out there, if you want to subscribe, give us a call, get on our website, and you can figure out how to get our newsletter. And otherwise, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we actually have a gift for everybody listening today. And as a reminder, all Zweig Group media programs like this one are available normally on podcast format, but also video. They're free for download on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube, just to name a few places. We'd like to thank you specifically for listening to this podcast by offering you a free copy. Yes, you've heard me say it, a free copy of the Zweig Letter and a free subscription to Civil plus Structural Engineer magazine. Now, how often do you listen to a podcast and get a free newsletter and a free subscription to a magazine? Not often, folks. So I really want to encourage you. Just visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com. A link to all of this information, including contact information for Richard, will be in our show notes. And we'd love it if you'd go to iTunes or wherever you tune into this show and give us a 5-star rating and share this link with a friend. I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to Zweig Group Media, part of Zweig Group. Remember, we exist to make you more successful. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this special edition Zweig Letter podcast. We hope that you can apply Mark's no-holds-barred advice to your daily professional life. For a free 6-week subscription of the Zweig Letter, please visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.